Hello, everyone. My name is Katie Toole, and I am working on my district leadership certification through Fort Hays this summer. My new role next year is curriculum director in the Renwick School District 267, and I'm excited to be a part of this class. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I have first looked at the two articles here. So the first one that I looked at and analyzed was the survey of the K-12 educators on social networking and content sharing. The demographics were very interesting to me. I felt like it was a very large, well-represented population of teachers. Almost 83,000 educators had been surveyed. Interesting, 75% were female, 25% male. I feel like that's pretty typical demographic makeup of a staff. A majority of educators are female, so we know that. The age, I think, is important to look at, that 57% of the respondents were what I would consider middle age, 35 to 54. 42% had been in education more than 20 years, and so we definitely have an older, more experienced workforce that was surveyed. There was an even distribution of grade levels, so that was good. And this was mostly made up of suburbia teachers, so 52% versus 25% in urban areas. And 61% of them did say that they have joined some kind of a social network. So that is good. They're on the social networking, but possibly not using it in their field. So the results, like I said, were very interesting. So 85% of the educators said that they use social media to connect with friends. Only 58%, so it is a majority, said that they do see the value in it and using it for professional reasons, but only 30% indicated that they use social media to connect on a professional level. And I find that very interesting. That seems very low to me. This study was done in 2009, so it's almost 10 years old, which does make a little bit of a difference. Everyone realizes social media changes, technology changes daily. And so having a 10-year-old study, I think if it was done today, those numbers probably would be higher. I would say in the last 1 to 2 years even, Twitter has exploded as the possibilities of professional development are just endless with Twitter. And so that is one area that I, as an administrator, want to make sure that we use and utilize with our staffs. So I did find it interesting that librarians were the first to see value in social media, followed by teachers, and lastly principals. And I really wonder maybe if it's just an age difference, the principal category or could be an older population of principals. It also is just really all comes down to time. And I think I'm going to touch on that here in the next slide. So everyone has a lack of time, including principals, because I've been there for 6 years, so I know how that goes. The concerns that were brought up in this survey were that educators just felt like they had a lack of time. They were concerned about their personal privacy. How do they keep work separate from their personal life? And do you have to? That's a very good question. Do you have to keep those two separate? And the third thing they were concerned about was the blocks at work, what the district blocks as far as, do you block YouTube? Do you block certain websites so that faculty and students do not have access to that? The educators in the survey did say they want to learn social media, but they need professional development. And I think that is huge for our role as administrators, to find out what our staff need and then to be able to provide that for them. They want to teach kids, but they cannot keep up with them in the ever-changing technical world. And really the districts, we need to examine what is our role? How are we going to either encourage or discourage social media usage for staff and or students? And so I found it very interesting that Twitter was on the list of this survey, but it was not high on the list. And I do think that just has to do with the study being almost 10 years old, because Twitter, I think now has exploded with possibilities. The second article was called How Schools Are Steering Social Media, and I found it very interesting that Eudora, Kansas was mentioned in the article. It talked about students who had been using Twitter inappropriately to talk about the principal and administration outside of school time, and then the fact that the administration acted on that and ultimately was in legal trouble because they did. So we as district administrators have to decide what's the line, what are we going to act on for discipline reasons, and what are we not going to. And although I know in my district the rule is, if the social media is causing problems within the school building during school hours, then yes, we have to deal with that because it's interrupting the education of students. Some districts are much more punitive than others. Some that were given as examples in the article used certain moments to be teachable moments and to explain why certain things were wrong and how to properly use technology. We have to be very, very careful as district administrators of being able to know the difference of when to act and when not to act. Some districts have faced the legal process because of disciplining students, and our policies really have to be futuristic and have some forethought to them. So we don't want to be writing policies every year trying to keep up with a very restricted policy and a very restricted atmosphere when we never know what's going to happen with technology. So I think as a district administrator, my role, and even as a former building principal, is think of it in a more broader scope of what kind of damage is being done, how can we make sure that kids are productive and that they learn the right way to use social media. So I have here, my reflection is we have to determine our why. That's always my big thing. Why are we going to restrict things? Instead, why don't we find out, what do we want? Do we want global citizens that can be responsible for technology? My answer to that is yes. Then I believe we have to teach the skills in the context of that. So we did have some situations this last year at the high school where I was principal, and I had to deal with social media, and it was Snapchat predominantly because of Snapchat's feature that it disappears. And so the kids were posting some inappropriate videos. One in particular was a video of drinking that they had done off campus right before a basketball game. And then those same kids came to the basketball game. And so I did discipline them for those actions. But that was recorded and posted on Snapchat. And so there's lots of times where kids are going to make bad choices, make some bad decisions, and we have to decide when and where the appropriate line is for disciplining them, and how do we want to regulate that from the perspective of we want them to learn, so therefore we have to know the context and we have to be able to teach. So my teachers need to be digital citizens themselves. They need to be comfortable with technology, and I as an administrator have to be able to support them and provide professional development. At the same time, at the district level, I have to be able to know the legal rules of discipline and how we can make technology work for the betterment of everyone, students and staff. All right, I look forward to seeing everybody's videos. Thanks.